Hello. So, the big day tomorrow, back to school. For lots of parents, it's like, yes, thank God it's happening tomorrow. You know, the Sunday before school is generally spent crying at the bottom of a washing pile where you're trying to find last year's sports kit. And a lot of, thank God, we just need them back, we need them back. The kids are all miserable because they don't want to go back, although they're slightly excited to see their friends, but don't admit that, do you ever? No. But there's this radio and TV campaign going on where Bridget Phillipson is saying, you parents need to get your kids back into school. You need to make sure that they start school tomorrow, because if they don't, bad things are going to happen in their lives. They're going to miss, if they miss some of next week, then they're going to miss loads of time in the rest of the year. And effectively, you may as well just put them on scrap heap. I mean, she doesn't say those exact words, but that's what she's trying to say. She's effectively trying to guilt you. So obviously, as the nation, the parenting nation, gets ready for school tomorrow, there's very few families who aren't saying, oh, don't worry, don't bother going. There will be some, but most parents are going, come on, let's go back to school. Because most people agree that education is really important, and educating our children is something that really matters to society. We've all been there, seen it, done it, and now it's their turn. Now, we know that Bridget Phillipson doesn't really sort of think the same as us because she likes taxing education. And she only really likes the Labour indoctrinated education, but there's some of us traditionalists that actually like kids going to school to learn stuff, although granted some of the stuff they're learning on the curriculum is interesting, shall we say. But anyway, she's trying to guilt us into making sure that our kids go to school, not understanding that for the children that don't go to school in the first week of term, Bridget's going to put that down to you being a shit parent and them being awful children, and it's a bad behaviour thing. She's going to put it down to just can't be asked. She's going to put it down to they're lazy. They haven't got good parenting morals. They don't know what they're talking about. At no point in her tiny little mind, it's the size of a pea, at no point has she worked out that the children that don't go to school at the start of term are invariably avoiding school. Why are they avoiding school, I hear you ask? Well, that's a very good question. Most of them, if they are neurodivergent, may be avoiding school because it's too overwhelming, it's a trigger, it's a trauma response, it's too much for them to deal with, they don't enjoy school, they have a bad experience at school. For a lot of kids, particularly children with special educational needs, and we can talk about 13,000 children that were in the independent sector now going into the state sector, that independent sector was suiting their needs. It was meeting their needs. It was allowing them to get the help that they needed so that they could go to school, so that they would be there on the first day of school, so that they could engage in school. But now they're going to a different setting that they don't want to go to, that can't meet their needs because their parents have been taxed out of the education system that worked for them. So they're now in the state education system that doesn't work for them, and it doesn't work for them. And that's why they were in the independent sector, but now it's like that little boomerang effect, isn't it? So here we are back in the state sector. And for a lot of kids, it's just not going to work. They're not going to be at school tomorrow or on Tuesday or on Wednesday because for them, it's a step too far. But Bridget Phillipson's tiny mind doesn't understand that. She just thinks if you don't go to school, it's because you can't be asked or you're coming from the wrong place. And she's wanging on about in this tweet, where you've come from shouldn't determine what you can go on to do in life. Unless, of course, you are a white middle-class boy, then it absolutely determines what's going to happen to you and where you go, and particularly if you went to an independent school, because that will knock off the list a load of universities and colleges that you can go to. It will knock off the list a load of apprenticeships that you can do. It will knock off the list a load of work experience that you can do, and these days, even if you want to be a doctor, it'll knock that off the list as well. So actually, where you come from more than ever determines what you can do, because Bridget Phillipson has decided that she's going to knock you off the list, and you can't do the things that the kids from down the road who have got no money, are in absolute poverty and don't have any heating upstairs. Her words, not mine. They can do it, you can't. So where it used to be that you could aspire to do what you wanted, I know, that's weird, isn't it? A concept where you could choose what you'd like to do. Not anymore. No. It will be socially driven. Your background will determine what you can do and where you can do it. And if you're from the right background, i.e. Bridget Phillipson's tick box right background, then the sky is no limit. Well, it kind of slightly is actually when Rachel Reeves get hold of you, then the sky's a massive limit. It's like this huge ceiling, and then you won't want to do what you wanted to do anyway because she's going to tax the shit out of you. But if you come from a white middle class background and particularly went to an independent school, you are fucked. I mean, don't even bother. There is no point going to school because you're not going to be able to do anything with it anyway because you've come from the posh blazer gang and nobody likes the posh blazer gang. They need to be moved away and put into the sink schools where they can raise the standards because that's what's happening. So this is the whole education thing going on at the minute. I mean, Keir Starmer's tweeting, class disruption prevents children from learning. Oh, it doesn't, does it, Keir? Don't tell me that if you disrupt a child's education, then it prevents them from learning. I mean, that didn't happen to your son, did it? Because you told us that you moved him and the fam into Lord Ali's flat so that his GCSE revision wasn't disrupted. That's what you told us, and we're supposed to believe every word that comes out of your mouth, even we know that every word that comes out of your mouth is utter bollocks. But nonetheless, you told us that, we're supposed to believe it. So the headline you're telling us is you would not allow your son to be disrupted. And as you said in your tweet, class disruption prevents children from learning. Yeah, what's happened over the past year since we've had VAT on education? That's right, class disruption. We've put 13,000 children out of their classrooms into the state classrooms, but there are no state classrooms to put them all in. So where are they going to go? How are they going to learn? Are they going to be disrupted? Yeah, they are. That's right. Now, what does that disruption look like in class? Well, it looks like an absolute bloody nightmare for the teacher, and it probably looks like a lot of kids aren't going to want to go to school, which brings us back to the tweet that Bridge said, you've got to get your kids to school, because if you don't get your kids to school in the first week, then they're going to amount to nothing in life, even though where you come from shouldn't determine what goes on to do in your life, but they're going to amount to nothing. That's what Bridge is telling you. It's got to be her way. They've got to be at school, and if not, they're going to go to the behaviour hubs, the detention hubs, and if you don't get your kids to school, you're going to have the shit find out of you. And for a lot of parents, you could be faced with imprisonment. That's right, folks. We want your kids to learn. And if not, we're going to put you in the clanger. So education to me is looking less than rosy, is looking very dictatorial, is looking as though they haven't got a clue what they're talking about, is showing openly that they have no grasp of the SEND system, that special educational needs and disabilities system. But we don't expect them to like the disabled kids, do we? Because they don't like the disabled grown-ups. So why would they like the disabled kids? So it's basically looking like a cluster of fill the gaps in, and it's all happening tomorrow. Do you know what I predict? I predict that in the first week of school, in the first week of September, we're going to see quite a lot of educational stories coming out of Bridget Phillipson's mouth, and we're going to see quite a lot of the reality of what's happened since she has been Education Secretary. And I can tell you what I think. I think it's all going to look pretty flipping damning.